Surprise! I bet you weren't expecting more work so soon, were ya? Mark said you'd be perfect for this gig, and I don't dare question his taste. We'd like you to do the compositing on the nighttime spot from the Lugnuts campaign. Mark is already knocking out the daytime spot, so you just need to make yours line up with the impeccable quality that Mark Christensen is known for. Since this one feels like nighttime, make sure the environment and the talent all feel like they're in the same lit up world. Do your thing.
All right, well, you saw my version of this bumper and it's pretty good, but honestly, I'm a little jealous because the version you get to work on, I think, has the potential to be the best one. Let's take a look.
Hey, Mike, what do you call a guy with a car on his head?
I don't know, Tracy. What do you call a guy with a car on his head?
Jack.
Get ready, Gearheads. Season 2 of the Lugnuts premieres October 28th, only on Wrench TV.
Whoo boy, who are the writers on this show? Geniuses. Back here at the beginning, I'm just gonna take a look at the opening scene, and you looked at my version. Let me point out a couple things that are different here. One, obviously, is the light levels, which you can see reflected in the histogram here, which in Lumetri scopes is sideways from the one you're used to seeing, say, in levels. But the bottom is down here, and only the low levels are extending above sort of the halfway point here. So the levels are indeed pretty low. That's not always the way that you shoot a night scene. Sometimes they're shot in regular light, and then one uses a mixture of desaturating and bringing down the exposure, maybe bluing them out. But we've already done that in the source here, so it's definitely in range. Then it's going to be up to you to decide, do you want to add more contrast or less? How do you want it to look, keeping in mind that it's all about the talent? One thing I really love in here is that the shot has interactive lighting in it. So this light going past them right in there, it's a really nice touch. The other scope that you saw here, by the way, is the parade. And as you go through the scene, this is showing you each pixel or each row of pixels left to right. And that's why they change the way they do. So you can even watch the light go through the scene there. It's kind of like doing the wave. So as you work your way through the scene and get to the end, you're going to have similar challenges to the ones you saw me work on, but you're not going to be able to replicate everything because everything's just a little bit different. I don't know that the biggest differences will be actually in the keying. I mean, they certainly will be different, but these look, again, like pretty well shot plates. But if we take a look at Photoshop, there is a different way you might end up working with the artwork. Now, what I'm talking about here is in the nice to have category, not in the must have. On the other hand, if you feel up to it, it really will potentially plus up a night scene like this. Only do it if you have enough time. Now, first of all, this PSD is 12,000 pixels wide. And you're seeing me work on a state-of-the-art iMac, but you may not have access to such powerful equipment. And so keep in mind, if you need to reduce the 2.6 gigs, is what I'm seeing here, of file size, then what you can do is convert these to PNGs and flatten the foreground, middle ground, and background. There's also a couple of adjustment layers in here, which the artist decided to put in. Keep in mind, you do not need to use those whatsoever. Usually artists, they love their work and they sit there and get it just the way they want it. But it's kind of like if you ever worked on a play or a movie script and somebody put in commas and so on, you just cross those out and disregard them, or wherever it says the word pause or whatever, you got to feel it. The other thing I would like to call your attention to is this is a night scene. So you've got this great opportunity for objects that are either reflecting or emitting light. The sign here, these spotlights over here are actually emitting light to do some bokeh blur. So here I have just the foreground, the oil sign singled out And you can see even my After Effects is struggling a little bit. If I go down into the subcomp level, there we go. And just look at the oil sign. That is the one called sign. And I could apply camera lens blur to that. Now, by default, it's not going to look like much. And I played around with this a little bit. So one thing I would encourage you to do is go up from hexagon to probably octagon. Most cameras have an octagonal or a non-nagonal, 9-sided. Don't quote me on that, but I think that the aperture is often more than 6 sides, and I just know in After Effects it's going to look better if you go up to that. And then let's pump up the radius, and this is going to take a little while. This is a slow effect, and there are faster alternatives available out there. Okay, that was too much, but the things you can mess around with here are the amount of blur. Let's come back on that, and you can also change the threshold. So if you want it to work just on the highest highlights, you can raise the threshold, or if you want more of it to have this camera lens blur, you can do that. And then you can also gain it up. So if you want those highlights to bloom more by increasing the gain, you are going to see, wait for it, boom. Well, okay, that wasn't much. But that may be something that you end up wanting to have a play with. But more generally, I would encourage you in one way or another to give it that night lit look in the background. And really, that is at your discretion again. How saturated, how light, how dark, how contrasty that looks. That's all in your hands now. And I really look forward to seeing what you guys do with this. I almost forgot to mention there are a couple of other pieces of artwork for you here. This is the end card, so you can just turn off the layers with the car and the stand-ins. Nowhere near as good looking as our actual talent. And here is the artist's mock-up of the scene. Obviously, again, I don't see the kind of stuff happening with the lighting that you might do in this, but that was just kind of the approval concept, so that would tell you something about positioning, perhaps. But again, you are the artist, so you do what you feel, man, until the client shoots it down.
The most important thing to focus on here, though, is the keying and comping, and all the extra stuff is really if it floats your boat. I would say, if you can, finish the entire spot. If you're pressed for time, you could just comp the first shot or just the final, but come on, do the whole spot.
Believe it or not, the car shot is considered one of the boss monsters of visual effects compositing. If you go back in time, say maybe 15 years ago, it was pretty rare to see a convincing car interior. You could always kind of tell, and you look at old movies and forget about it. It was just accepted that those were not going to look realistic. And what we're doing here is what's called the poor man's process. I won't get into that, but you can look it up if you wanted. And it's a great skill to have to pull this off. A huge advantage you have here is you're working with footage that was actually really well shot. All that interactive lighting that's going on that you see in there is really going to help sell this in a way that you could never recreate. Lights rolling across something as complicated as a car interior and a human figure. Oh my God, it's such a pain to try to recreate that. So have at it, have fun, make it look awesome, and I look forward to seeing what you do.